Okay, in this lesson, I want to talk to you about avoiding overwhelm because there are several factors that can cause you to feel overwhelmed. And what I've noticed is that when people start to feel overwhelmed, that's when they will just first off give up on the healing process. And that's the last thing I want you to do. The truth is that as you progress in your healing process, life will generally feel less overwhelming to you. But before we get started, we really have to talk about how to make this process feel like it's manageable so you'll be able to keep moving through it even when it feels stressful or even when it feels like it might be too scary, that you can remember these things and put into practice these skills that will help you avoid overwhelm and help you become successful as you start focusing on healing your first trigger and then your next one and then your next one. So, specifically, how we avoid overwhelm is by doing three specific things. One is you have to know what leads to overwhelm personally for you. And that might sound like a simple suggestion, but I have found that people who get overwhelmed just get overwhelmed and don't really think about what led into it. So I want you to know what leads to overwhelm for you. I want you to really think about that. And the handouts associated with this lesson will help you sort of pull your way through that so that you know what specifically leads to it for you. And then the second part to avoid overwhelm is to commit to really good self-care. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more as we move through this slide pack. And then finally, I want you to remember to focus on one trigger at a time. We're going to be kind of doing these explorations where you're being a detective when it comes to understanding what a trigger is really about and what all of your behaviors and thoughts surrounding that are, so that you can take them apart and really neutralize the trigger. But you have to be able to do that in a calm state. If your brain is in a fight flight state, that is the same state that you're at in overwhelm. And neither fight flight nor overwhelmed will help you lead to healing. So we really want to get a handle on the overwhelm. So let's look at that first point. What leads to overwhelm for you? I want you to make a list of all of the things that are stressful for you. And I also want you to think about when you're making this list, what of those stressful things are things that maybe you can take off your list? The healing process is strenuous. It's like exercising and it will make you tired. And so, as many things that you can control to take off your list temporarily so that you can focus on this healing process. Those that act of taking some things off of your list so that you can reduce the stresses while you're focusing on healing will actually help you in the process. The next thing I want you to do is prioritize that list so you can take some things off your list for the next 6 weeks. It might be little things like some extra things that you've put on your list that are on your daily to-do list that are really non-essentials. Or maybe you can do some crock pot cooking so that you don't have to think about dinner. Whatever the small things are that you can make adjustments to in the next 6 or 7 weeks so that you have just that much less stressful things on your plate, that's what I want you to think about. The next step is I want you to commit to really good self-care. And what does that mean? Sometimes when we've had lots of triggers and we've been feeling so uncomfortable in our body, we don't know what good self-care is. So here's what I want you to pay attention to. I want you to pay attention to, are you eating enough healthy food? Are you drinking enough water? Are you put yourself on the last person on the list and you don't eat well? You eat the leftovers and the scraps, or you just eat whatever junk you can buy at a drive-through because you don't ever make time for yourself. I want you to pay attention to your rest or sleep. Lots of times people who have trauma have difficulty sleeping. One of the things that can help with that is warm Epsom salt baths before bedtime. So maybe add a warm Epsom salt bath to your bedtime about 20 minutes before it's time to go to sleep to help you get better, more restful sleep. The next step about good self-care is remembering in this healing process not to go too fast. One of the things that I've noticed that women will do sometimes is they will want to get it over like it's a to-do list and just finish the process already. But there's something about the healing process that is organic and it has to be body led. And so you have to do it by listening to your body and by nurturing yourself along the way. You have to remember that trauma is something that happened to you that was out of your control. And the process of healing has to be one that you feel a sense of control in, that you don't overwhelm yourself with because you just want to move it. You just want to move past it. So remember, don't go too fast. Finally, the last step to practicing good self-care, committing to that, is practicing patience with yourself. You will heal. I am going to show you the process where you will be able to follow your body through a healing process, that your body takes over and begins to do the healing process automatically. You'll know what's happening along the way, and you'll be able to understand the signals that your body sends you as you listen to it. But you can't do that if you're not taking good care of yourself, because it's easy to mistake fatigue or hunger or pain from not taking care of yourself as a symptom or as something that can keep you in a fight flight response. So I want you to take really good care of yourself so that your body signals can come to you clearly and you can understand them. Finally, I want you to focus on one trigger at a time. So it's really important when you start this investigation and you decide which trigger it is that you're going to focus on. And when I say trigger, I really mean it's not the triggers that bother us. It's the behaviors that we do as a result of a trigger. So if I show a behavior or if I experience a behavior inside of myself, so I don't have to even scream or jump or yell at someone or overeat, or I don't have to do any of those things to know that I'm triggered. But we're usually most uncomfortable with the behaviors that we have as a response to a trigger. Think about that, right? So it's not the trigger itself. It's not focusing on what happens when the doorbell rings. It's not focusing on what happens when a sudden noise happens. It's really focusing on your response, your behavioral response to that trigger. And so I want you to really start thinking about how you're going to focus on one behavioral response to the trigger at a time. Okay, it's easiest to think of it like that. And when you do that, you're going to use journaling strategies. I want you to understand that there are some really specific strategies for journaling that are most successful in helping you understand what's happening at a deep level for you. And the first one, and it really is sort of my pet peeve with the mental health profession, is that they say, oh, journal about it, with the goal of just of emoting. And once you cry about it, then that's all you need to do to heal. And I don't believe that at all. I believe that when you're journaling, you need to really be focusing on patterns. You need to be looking at how your behaviors, thoughts, and feelings are connected to each other. And usually how those things are connected to an external trigger and how those are connected to either past or present events. So you're looking for patterns between your behavior, thoughts, feelings, and whatever that thing is that outside of you triggers that behavior. I want you to, while you're journaling, allow a free flow of your thoughts. Don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about if your spelling is right. Don't worry if your handwriting is sloppy. Just let your hand flow with your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors and the connections that are between them for you. While you're doing this, maintain an attitude of non-judgment. You're here to observe. You're here to learn. You're here to understand the connections that happen inside of you so that you can get better at control of them. And then finally, I want you to listen like you were listening to a friend, right? When you listen to a friend, you do it in this really non-judgmental way. And that allows you to hear things that are coming from your friend or see connections that maybe they don't see. If you're doing journaling right and focusing on patterns, allowing a free flow, doing it with non-judgment, and sort of stepping back and listening as if you were advising a friend, it's easier to see those patterns. The last thing I want to say is that emoting is not the goal of journaling. We're here to do some detective work to help you understand what's happening at your core related to those external events that cause behaviors that you're not happy with. So download the worksheets and let's dig into creating a plan for you to avoid overwhelm as you heal. Let's do this.